My aunt asked me to pick up my 6 feet 3 inches cousin who was coming home for winter break. Instead, I grabbed a random guy who was about the same height and took him home. The next day, our family group chat exploded. It was filled with messages from my cousin, accusing me of leaving him to spend the night at the airport. My mind went completely blank. So, I have to ask, who was the guy I brought home who slept on my living room couch? My aunt was traveling abroad but wanted me to pick up my cousin from the airport for his winter break. Jesse, your cousin is back from his high school out of state. Could you do me a huge favor and pick him up? He can stay with you for a couple of days. I'll bring you back a great gift. I was stunned for a second. Wait, can't he get home by himself? Oh, honey, he may be 6 feet 3 inches, but he's still just a kid. You two always got along so well when you were little. Please, just go get him. I immediately pictured the clingy little crybaby who used to tattle on me if I so much as breathed in his direction. That's what my aunt called getting along well? Auntie, I'm swamped with year-end reports. I'm crazy busy. Well, the thing is, I changed the locks and forgot to leave him a key, so I really have to trouble you. Besides, Jesse, aren't you 27 this year? You're not getting any younger. How about I set you up with someone after the holidays? Stop. That's enough. His flight lands at 9:30 tonight, right? I'll be there to get him. On time. I just knew you wouldn't abandon your own cousin. Leo was always so attached to you when he was little. That's exactly what I was afraid of. With how clingy he is, I'd never get any work done. But then again, I heard he's 6 feet 3 inches now. Surely he couldn't have only grown in height and not in maturity, right? After a few more pleasantries, I hung up and shook my head, exasperated. With the end of the year approaching, work was a madhouse. I was completely swamped. As evening fell, I finally finished my PowerPoint and told the new intern to print it out and give it to my boss, who was also working late. I drove to the airport to pick him up. I hit a massive traffic jam on my way out of the city, so I texted my cousin to wait a bit. He was surprisingly understanding, replying that I should drive safely and that he'd just wait at the airport and wouldn't go anywhere. That put my mind at ease, and the rest of the drive was pretty smooth. When I got to the airport, I spotted a tall, 6 feet 3 inches figure standing at the pickup curb from a distance. He stood ramrod straight, wearing a black puffer jacket, black pants, and leather shoes, with a black suitcase by his feet. That suitcase looked identical to the one my cousin had posted in the family group chat while complaining about how much stuff he had to pack. My eyes shifted back to him, and I marveled to myself. 3 years. What on earth did he eat to get this tall? Beep, beep. I honked as I pulled the car up beside him. I rolled down the passenger side window and finally got a clear look at his face. His cheeks had thinned out, his features more defined. The baby fat and the perpetually runny nose from his childhood were completely gone. He lifted his eyes and looked at my car, a stunned expression on his face. I honked twice more to hurry him along. Get in. My cousin, Leo, didn't move from his spot, still holding his phone and looking around. I figured the little punk was pretending not to recognize me. I shot him an eye roll. So childish. What are you standing there like a statue for? Get in the car, hurry up. I urged him on, put your suitcase in the trunk. Let's go, you're blocking traffic. The 6 feet 3 inches guy looked at me again, and finally moved. He got settled in. The second he slammed the car door shut with a bang, I stepped on the gas and sped away from the airport. Mission accomplished. My cousin was finally picked up. Except, this cousin of mine was surprisingly composed. He was nothing like the lively, boisterous kid in our group chat. I figured he was just acting distant because we hadn't seen each other in 3 years. Just as I was about to say something, my boss called. He immediately laid into me, yelling about how my PowerPoint used last week's data and asking if I was trying to be lazy or what. That couldn't be right. I'd spent a whole week gathering that data and checked it multiple times before leaving the office. So, I calmed my boss down and called the intern, Annie. It turned out Annie had made a mistake and submitted the old file. To make things worse, she had already taken the subway home. And at this hour, the subway had stopped running for the night. She was on the verge of tears. I was frustrated and had a headache. The presentation with the new data was mandatory for the morning meeting. So, I had no choice but to drive back to the office. I was on the phone the whole way there. It was only when I was about to get out of the car that I remembered my cousin was with me. I gave him an apologetic smile. "Hey, I'm so sorry, something urgent came up at work. I'll just be 10 minutes, I promise. Wait for me in the car and don't wander off, okay?" My cousin just looked at me without any expression. I thought he must be tired. "I'll take you home right after this. You can take a nice hot shower, and I'll order you some takeout. Be good." With that, I slammed the door and rushed upstairs. By the time I finished my work, my cousin wasn't waiting in the car. There he was, standing in the cold night wind, his puffer jacket off, revealing a medium-length black trench coat that billowed around him. He was holding 2 cups of coffee, leaning against the car door, looking like a total stud. A few shop clerks who were leaving work late walked by, letting out a collective wow. They all muttered about how handsome he was. My own vision went a little hazy for a second. But then my mind cleared. He's my cousin, and he's just a freshman in college. What am I thinking? I shook my head with a small laugh and walked towards him. My cousin handed me a coffee and then looked up at my office building behind me. "You work at Apex Corp?" I nodded. "You didn't know?" "Oh well, it doesn't matter. My career's pretty much stalled out. You need to study hard. If you don't push yourself when you have the chance, you'll regret it later." His brow furrowed even deeper. I figured he was in his rebellious phase and didn't want a lecture, so I shut up. "Let's go, back to my place?" "To your place?" My cousin hesitated. "Maybe I should just get a hotel." I scoffed. "Why waste money on a hotel when you have family? Got too much cash burning a hole in your pocket?" That made him laugh. The smile was still there when we got in the car. Bright and ridiculously charming. I mentally clicked my tongue. "You've really changed these last couple of years." He had this mature, steady vibe, with no trace of the little kid he used to be. He replied, "Have I? I don't really feel any different." I had a nagging feeling that something was off, but before I could think about it, my boss called again. He told me I needed to prepare a summary of the last 6 months' revenue for the morning meeting. It was going to be a sleepless night. Back at my 1-bedroom apartment, I pointed to the sofa in the living room and told my cousin he'd have to make do for a few days. Then I bolted into my bedroom, fired up my laptop, and prepared to pull an all-nighter. On a bathroom break, I saw him standing by the window in a set of loungewear, talking on the phone. He looked even more like a mature, grown man. I felt a pang of embarrassment as I patronizingly told him to get some sleep. Back in my room, I slapped my cheeks and cursed myself for being crazy. Thankfully, work was so busy I didn't have time to think about anything else. I worked until 6 in the morning and sent the file to my boss, who surprisingly replied instantly. "Thanks for the hard work. Take the morning off, you can come in this afternoon." Exhausted, I fell onto the bed and passed out. I woke up to my alarm at noon, and when I turned on my phone, the family group chat was blowing up. I picked it up and was instantly wide awake. My cousin was relentlessly tagging me in the chat, demanding an explanation. He was asking why I'd promised to pick him up and then completely ghosted him. He claimed he'd been stuck at the airport all night and nearly froze to death. Then came the flood of concern from all my aunts and uncles, followed by a wave of condemnation directed at me for being so irresponsible. I checked my call log. 48 missed calls. My world had just imploded. The key question was, if my cousin spent the night at the airport, then who was the guy I brought back and put on my living room couch? After staring into space for 3 seconds, I leaped out of my room. The sofa was empty. The thin blanket I had given someone last night was folded neatly at one end. On the coffee table, all of last night's random clutter was gone, the surface polished to a shine. The bathroom was empty, the kitchen was empty, the small balcony was empty. There was nowhere else to hide a person in my tiny little place. I let out a huge sigh of relief. Thank God, he wasn't some kind of criminal. But along with the relief, there was a faint twinge of regret. I'd accidentally brought a super hot stranger home, only to lock myself away and work all night. What is wrong with my life? I unconsciously kicked at the floor. Looking at the sparkling clean floorboards, I pictured the tall, handsome stranger doing housework and let out a smile that was equal parts relieved and absurd. I went to the fridge to get a glass of cold water to calm my nerves. As I closed the refrigerator door, I spotted a sticky note on it. Thanks for your hospitality. Hope to see you again. It was written with a black pen in neat, crisp handwriting. It looked as clean and composed as he did. I let out a small laugh for no reason. In the kitchen, I found a pot with warm millet porridge on the stove. I could tell the millet was leftover from what my mom had brought me a while back. My pantry was probably so bare that porridge was all he could make. Sure enough, there was another sticky note on the counter. Couldn't find your keys, so I couldn't go out. All I found was some sealed millet, so I made porridge. I held the 2 notes and carried the bowl of porridge to the table, slowly starting to eat. At the same time, I opened my phone with one hand and replied to my actual cousin. On my way to get you. My cousin sent back 6 periods, immediately followed by a barrage of frantic voice messages. I waited for you for almost 24 hours. I'm going to make a huge deal out of this in the family chat so they all know what you did. Have you learned your lesson? Huh? You better be nicer to your little brother from now on. And how are you going to make this up to me? A smile crept onto my face. And to think, yesterday I actually believed he had grown up and become mature and stable. Turns out, I just picked up the wrong guy. As for him, it didn't matter if he was 6 feet 3 inches or not, he was still the same childish kid. By the time I picked up Leo and got to the office, it was already 3 in the afternoon. As soon as I stepped out of the elevator, the intern, Annie, rushed over to me. I'm so sorry, Jesse. It's okay. Just remember to double-check everything from now on. Don't let it happen again. Jesse, you're so nice. She looked like she was about to cry. By the way, Jesse, a new big boss just got parachuted in. I said, didn't we hear about that a few days ago? He showed up this morning. He's crazy handsome. Annie was practically vibrating with excitement. And the company's year-end summary meeting was postponed. They said all key personnel had to be there. I was about to say something when my boss saw me and waved me over. Jesse, come here. Okay, boss. My boss pulled me towards the main conference room on the 9th floor. No time to explain. The new executive is here and he wants you in the meeting. He might ask you a few things about the data. As a regular team member, I was never required to attend meetings at this level. I was starting to get nervous. My boss explained, the new leadership probably wants to meet the core talent. You guys are the future of the company, after all. I nodded. Don't worry, boss. I won't let you down. I made a little joke to lighten the mood and walked into the large conference hall feeling slightly more relaxed. I casually glanced towards the head of the table, and my eyes froze, glued to the spot. It took me a long moment to process it. The new company executive was the cousin I had taken home yesterday. My cousin's real name was Felix Anderson, a hotshot who had returned from Wall Street. Word from corporate was that a few senior managers didn't respect him, but he dealt with them swiftly and decisively. Now that he was transferred to our branch, everyone from top to bottom was on high alert. I never expected Felix himself to be so young. And to think, I had mistaken him for my cousin just yesterday. I was still slaving away for a paycheck while he was at the top. The comparison was just depressing. During the meeting, my mind was elsewhere, my eyes fixed on my cousin's face. If only my real cousin looked like that, I could wake up every day and admire that angelic face. For a split second, I felt Felix's gaze meet mine, but when I looked up again, I told myself I was just imagining things. After the meeting, I was asked to stay behind. A moment, please. And so, under the envious glares of my colleagues and after a sharp elbow jab from Megan in my department, I remained in the conference room. Once everyone had left and the lights came back on, I stood next to Felix, laughing awkwardly. Mr. Anderson, about last night, I'm so sorry. I picked up the wrong person. Felix twirled a pen in his hand, a smile playing on his lips. It's fine. I got into the wrong car. I scratched my eyebrow and fidgeted with my skirt. I was making 1,000 nervous gestures a second, completely at a loss for words, when Felix's soothing voice broke the silence. You don't need to be so tense. I just wanted to ask, was the porridge this morning any good? Huh? Oh, it was delicious. I wasn't sure what game the new CEO was playing, but I figured flattery couldn't hurt. I immediately gave him a thumbs up. It was the most delicious porridge I've ever had. Ha! Felix laughed. When he laughed, his monolids folded into subtle double eyelids, making him look even more charming. I haven't cooked in a while. As long as it wasn't terrible, I'm good. Felix briefly explained that he knew he'd gotten into the wrong car last night and was about to leave. But when he knocked on my bedroom door, I told him not to bother me and to just crash on the couch for the night. I apologized profusely, explaining that I was swamped with work. Felix seemed very laid back about it and even thanked me for taking him in. He joked, otherwise, in a new city, I wouldn't have known where to spend the night. I took it as a joke, but it still left me feeling flattered and happy. Felix praised the data in my report, calling it very detailed, but also pointed out its shortcomings and suggested where we could find a breakthrough in the future. While I marveled at his intelligence and insight, my inner fangirl was screaming. The new CEO is so handsome. And his body is amazing. And his emotional intelligence, it's off the charts. Ah. When I got back to the office, I was swarmed by a group of female colleagues. They all started chattering at once, asking me what the new CEO was like. Then, a dissonant voice cut through the noise. It was Megan. It really pays to be pretty. Some people work their fingers to the bone, and the bosses don't even notice. But for others, all they have to do is stand there, and every man's eyes are glued to them. To those in the know, she was kept behind to talk about work. To those who aren't, it looks like she's sleeping her way to the top. The intern, Annie, shot back, Megan, what are you talking about? Megan threw her hands up with a smug, punchable look on her face. What did I say? I'm just saying we're all busy little bees, but some people are just looking for a handout. The jab was clearly aimed at me. You. I stopped Annie, whose face was red with anger. I got up and walked over to Megan's desk. Seeing me approach, Megan jumped. You, what do you want? I looked down at her and smiled, placing my hands on her desk. From my superior height, I naturally caught a glimpse of the two large assets in her low-cut top. What are you looking at? Megan covered her chest with her hand. Didn't you wear that so people would look? I said bluntly. If men won't look, I guess I can take a peek. Where'd you get that a cup boob job, domestic or international? Seriously, what was the point of getting those done? You were already brainless, and now you're just brainless with big boobs. You, Megan, perched on her sky-high heels, stood up and pointed at my nose. Jessie, how dare you insult me? Insult you? What about it? You're allowed to make snide remarks, but I can't speak the truth. When the department needs survey data, who's out in the field? Who's making the PowerPoints, who's working until 2 in the morning? You should be glad the CEO kept me behind. If it were you, what would you have discussed with him? The secret history of breast implants? You, Megan, furious and embarrassed, lunged at me. I'll rip your mouth off. Unfortunately for her, even in her stilettos, she was only as tall as my 5 feet 7 inches frame. I twisted her arm and sent her stumbling back. Megan then dramatically twisted her ankle and sat on the floor, crying. I clapped my hands dismissively. If there's one thing I can't stand, it's the two-faced damsel in distress act. If you ever try that passive-aggressive crap with me again, I, a former kids taekwondo champion, will knock your teeth out. Megan was so scared she stopped crying. Somewhere in the office, someone let out a pft, followed by a series of stifled chuckles. I decided to quit while I was ahead. I turned around, and who should be standing at the door but my boss and the new CEO, Felix. Those charming eyes, the ones that turned into double eyelids when he smiled, had been watching for who knows how long. Just moments ago I was a warrior queen, now I was mortified. At the same time, I marveled at this strange, bizarre twist of fate. My boss rushed forward, shot me a glare, then turned to Felix behind him to explain. Mr. Anderson, our department is usually very harmonious and friendly. This isn't typical. Megan, completely unable to read the room, thought her backup had arrived. She jumped up and wrapped her hands around Felix's arm. Her chest bounced against his arm a couple of times as she whined pitifully. Mr. Anderson, all I did was say a few words about Jessie not taking her work seriously and relying on her looks, and she attacked me. You have to stand up for me. I rolled my eyes. When Felix wasn't smiling, his monolid eyes looked down on the world, and his gaze was a little terrifying. It was so intense that Megan let go of his arm. Then, everyone watched as Felix looked down and rubbed his empty pinky finger. He said slowly, competition is a good thing, but mindless competition is a major business taboo. I'm very pleased to see everyone working so hard. In that case, for next month's performance review, we will implement a bottom-out elimination system, starting with your department. Now Megan couldn't even cry if she wanted to. As Felix was leaving, he called out to me again in front of everyone. Jessie, come here for a second. I followed Felix out the door, unable to stop the corners of my mouth from turning up. Felix turned back and saw my smiling face. That happy? I said, it's all right. Boss, what did you need me for? Felix glanced back inside, saw that no one was coming out, and said mysteriously, I think I might have left my ring at your place. I raised an eyebrow, then quickly looked down at Felix's long fingers. When I asked him where he might have left it, he couldn't say. I just said it's a possibility. Frowning, I asked, you just noticed it was missing? Is it expensive? Felix just went, I'll go back and look for it, I said, quickly pulling out my phone. Mr. Anderson, would it be convenient to add you on WhatsApp? I'll contact you if I find it. Felix took out his phone, unlocked it, and after a few taps, held it out for me to scan. After Felix left, my head was spinning. A ring, the key problem was I hadn't seen any ring before I left this morning, and I'd even had the cleaning lady come. If this thing was expensive, would Mr. Anderson make me pay for it? Ugh, this corporate life is so hard. Back in the office, my colleagues' curiosity was stronger than ever. They asked me what Mr. Anderson wanted to talk to me about alone. I made up a random excuse, my face still hot. I had no idea if they believed me. When I got home from work, the first thing I did was rush to the bathroom. Leo was in the middle of a shower and let out a huge, startled yelp. He covered his private parts and asked in a trembling voice from behind the door. Geez, sis, is staying at your place always this exciting? I was furious. Who told you to shower without locking the door? Hurry up, I have things to do. While Leo was showering, I checked every crevice in the sofa, but found nothing. The moment he came out, I dove into the bathroom and searched the vanity, but still no ring. Sis, what are you looking for? Have you seen a ring? A ring? Nope, haven't seen one. Is it expensive? No, I said, thinking to myself, who the hell knows if it's expensive or not. Long story short, I spent the whole evening tearing the apartment apart and found nothing. I even called the cleaning lady, and she said she hadn't seen anything either. I usually keep my jewelry in a small drawer by the door, and of course, it wasn't in there. This was a real problem. I picked up my phone hesitantly, opening and closing Felix's chat window, unsure of how to explain. Then, my finger slipped and I ended up on his social media profile. His feed was pure finance bro. It was all reposts of current events, product promotions, and technical articles in foreign languages, a world away from my own feed filled with food pictures, selfies, and complaints about the hardships of life. I wondered if he ever looked at my profile. If he did, would he think I was a slacker? Or maybe, he'd find my personal side cute. I was lost in my own thoughts. Leo's cool voice suddenly cut in. What are you looking at, crying and laughing all by yourself? I shot him a glare. When is your mom coming back? Leo sat down on the sofa next to me, his long limbs sprawling. I don't know, but I think your place is pretty comfortable. This sofa might not be big, but it's surprisingly comfy to sleep on. If you like it so much, stay a few more days. There's a game console under the TV cabinet. Don't wander off these next few days, or your mom will blame me again if you get lost. I glanced at the clock. It was already 11:30 p.m. The boss should be asleep by now, so I decided not to bother him. I put my phone away, turned on the TV, and planned to watch a short drama for half an hour before bed. The moment the TV came on, Leo was full of disdain. Sis, I can't believe it. You act like a professional white-collar worker, but at home, you watch mindless soap operas just like my mom. I said breezily, wait until you're married. You'll find out all women are the same. Leo retorted, I'm never getting married. It's too much of a hassle. My senses tingled. Are your dad and mom fighting again? Leo nodded. Why do you think my mom suddenly changed the locks and went on a trip abroad? My dad brought his mistress home. My mom threw out everything in the house that she could. I said, and they're still not getting a divorce after that? Ha! Leo scoffed. They used to use me as an excuse, saying they were staying together for my sake, for my studies. Now I'm in college, and I told my mom to divorce him. You know what she said? My cousin answered his own question. My mom said she's not getting a divorce because she wants to protect the family assets for me. She said after I get married, she'll transfer the company to my name. Huh, transfer what? Who cares? With all the drama at home, they expect me to get married? I'd rather die than get married. My aunt and uncle had started from scratch. A few years ago, they caught the wave of the real estate boom and made a fortune in the building materials industry. They even started a small company and earned more money than they could spend in a lifetime. What came with it was my uncle's philandering, which later escalated to him openly keeping a college student as a mistress. My aunt had fought and argued with him. The more they fought, the more distant their relationship became. But neither wanted a divorce that would involve splitting their assets, so for years, they'd been living in this state of constant conflict. Their ridiculous stories could fill 3 days and 3 nights. But bringing the mistress home was just too much. There are hotels everywhere. Sometimes I really don't understand what goes through the minds of men who can't control themselves. You are you, and they are them, I offered lamely, wanting to pat his head but realizing he had grown too tall for me to reach. Leo gave a sad smile. Sis, you're so beautiful, you must have a lot of guys chasing you. I have one piece of advice, dating is fine, but don't even think about marrying anyone. Men are all trash. Leo concluded that the richer the man, the bigger the scumbag. I immediately thought of Felix. My heart, which had just been warming up, suddenly turned cold after Leo's lecture. He was right. If a man of my uncle's status was so unfaithful, what could I expect from someone with Felix's background? It was better not to even think about it. Making my own money was the most reliable thing. So, I decided to stop looking for the ring, stop planning to send the text, and just deal with everything at work tomorrow. Regarding the ring, I sent a message the very next day, keeping it strictly professional. Mr. Anderson, I couldn't find the ring. Could you please think again if it might have been left somewhere else? Felix's status showed typing, for several minutes, then a line of text popped up on my phone. It's fine. It wasn't expensive anyway. I let out a breath of relief, thinking the matter was closed. After that, my life was almost completely consumed by work. Endless data reports and PowerPoints every day. Even my boss found my work ethic terrifying, joking that if he didn't step up his game, his position would be in jeopardy. My encounters with Felix were always brief and public, either at the crowded elevator bank or in a dark conference room where I could quietly admire his handsome profile. Even on the rare occasions we met alone, I was polite and formal, sometimes cracking a cautious joke or two to suck up to the boss. When Felix looked at me, I never saw that stunning, charming look in his eyes again. Who knew that a month later, I would run into Felix again at a restaurant? I was there for a business meeting and had a bit too much to drink. While catching some air in the restaurant's lounge area, I saw Felix on a sofa in the relaxation zone, phone in hand, legs crossed, rejecting the advances of a long-legged woman. He didn't even say a word, a single glance was enough to make her retreat in defeat. From my angle, I caught the icy, almost murderous look in his eyes before he could hide it. He was like a completely different person from the almost always smiling man at the office. I was debating whether to go over and say hello or pretend I hadn't seen him when Felix spotted me. His gaze swept over me flatly, and it was surprisingly suffocating. I walked over, forcing a smile. "Hello, Mr. Anderson. I didn't expect to run into you here." Felix glanced at me and nodded with a simple He was usually a man of few words, but his expression wasn't normally this cold. I was starting to regret coming over. This guy was clearly in a bad mood. My awkward smile was frozen on my face, and I had no idea what to say next when Felix finally spoke. "Here with friends?" I replied, "No, it's a business dinner." "You're alone?" Felix frowned. Sensing he was about to lecture me about a woman being out alone and unsafe, I quickly explained, "I'm with Mr. Wong from Apex. We were college classmates, and we're having dinner with his team today." Felix nodded. "Go on, then." Well, I won't disturb you then." I went back, and my dinner wrapped up quickly. When I came out, Felix was no longer in his original spot. At the restaurant entrance, after I saw my clients off, a car pulled up smoothly beside me. The window rolled down, revealing Felix sitting in the back. "Get in. I'll take you home." Then he added, "I've been waiting for you for a while." I shut my mouth and obediently got in the car. Once I was in, Felix gave the driver the name of my apartment complex, even down to the building and unit number. I was speechless again. Felix had probably had a lot to drink too. His collar was slightly open, his hands were crossed over his chest, and his right hand was rubbing the pinky of his left. On a whim, the question slipped out. "Mr. Anderson, you still haven't found your ring?" Felix's movement stopped. He shot me a sidelong glance. "No." I puffed out my cheeks. I really did search everywhere at my place. I even dug through the sofa cushions. "It's really not there." Felix didn't say anything. I explained again, I even called my cleaning lady, and she didn't see it either. "So your ring definitely wasn't left at my apartment." Noticing the gossipy look from the driver in the front, I stopped talking. Felix gave a faint and I couldn't tell if he had heard me or not. When he dropped me off, Felix got out of the car too. After saying goodbye, I walked to the entrance of my building and looked back. He was still leaning against the car, smoking. The night sky was clear, and the only light was the dying ember between his fingers, making him look desolate. Back home, I exhaustedly took a shower. I sat on the sofa, regretting not inviting him up for a drink to improve our boss-employee relationship. Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I saw my cousin, Leo, playing a video game. On his pinky finger was a ring glinting with a cold light. I jumped up and grabbed his hand. Leo yelped, "Sis, what are you doing? You scared me." You just ruined my high score. I held his hand. Where did you get this ring? Even though I'd never seen Felix's ring, this one was clearly not Leo's size, and I didn't own one like it. Sure enough, I heard Leo casually reply, on top of the fridge in the kitchen. I was putting a water bottle on top of it after drinking and saw this ring, so I just put it on for fun. I looked at the height of the fridge and thought to myself, so, do all 6 feet 3 inches guys like to hide things on top of the fridge? When people look for things, they usually check the cracks in the floor. Who thinks to check the top of the fridge? Thinking about the confident declarations I had just made, I wanted to strangle myself. With some effort, I pulled the ring off Leo's hand and rushed to the window to look down. The street below was, of course, empty. I came back with the ring in my hand and tried it on my own pinky. It was loose and wobbly. I took it off and tried it on my ring finger. It fit perfectly. The outer band of the ring could be spun. No wonder Felix was always subconsciously touching and turning his pinky. This ring must be very important to him. Leo was munching on a peach and asked, "Did a guy drop you off just now?" I nodded. He asked again, "Is this ring his?" I nodded again. Damn. Leo dramatically leaped onto the sofa, pointing an accusing finger at me. You got a man behind my back. And this guy has been to your place and even left his ring on the fridge. How far have you two gone? Have you slept together? Ah, the sky is falling. I have to tell my mom, I have to tell our aunt, Leo frantically started looking for his phone. My head was pounding. Shut up, Leo. If you dare tell on me, I'll throw you out on the street, you believe me? Leo asked, so, you're really dating someone? Dating my ass. I had to explain the whole story of picking up the wrong person that day. After hearing it, Leo looked wistful. Don't you think this is fate? Didn't this whole thing make you two think about something else? I said, get lost. Leo argued, it's understandable that you picked up the wrong person, but for him to get in the wrong car and follow you home? You don't think he has other intentions? Jesse, do you own a mirror? Take a look at yourself. I bet you if he wasn't attracted to you, he's not a normal man. Get lost, and I'm not a normal woman either. Back in my room, scratching my head in frustration, I sent a picture to Felix. Mr. Anderson, I'm so sorry, but I found the ring. It was on top of my fridge. I don't really clean the top of the fridge often, huh? I'll bring it to you at work tomorrow. I expected him to say okay, but the message that came back was a huge surprise. Is it convenient for you to bring it to me now? I've been drinking, and it's not easy to get a cab from here. Then came a location pin. I was stunned for 3 seconds. Oh, okay, Mr. Anderson. I'll head out right now. As I was putting on my shoes in the entryway, Leo gave me a cool, knowing look. Be back early. Don't forget you're a woman with a man at home. We have a curfew, you know. 2 a.m. You have to be back by 2 a.m. Otherwise, I'll have to report your crime of not coming home in the family group chat. And for leaving me at the airport. You'll be in for it then. Slam. The only answer he got was the sound of me forcefully shutting the door. Felix lived in a villa. He had given the guards a heads up, so my car was allowed to park right in front of his building. The elevator was remote controlled. He opened the door for me, and I went up to the second floor. When I walked in, I saw Felix still in the same clothes, holding a wine glass by the window, looking lonely and desolate. Mr. Anderson? He turned around, his face obscured by the backlight. Sorry to make you come all this way. Then he pressed a remote control in his hand, and the room was suddenly flooded with bright light, the whole place smelling of money. Sit. Felix pointed to the sofa, then went to the kitchen to pour me a glass of water. I placed the ring on the coffee table. Your ring. Felix picked it up, slipped it on his finger, and spun it freely. Then he smiled. When he smiled, his charming eyes with their subtle double eyelids were incredibly captivating. Alone in a room with a man like that, my mouth went dry. I downed half the glass of water. "Mr. Anderson, this ring must be very important to you." Felix said. "Yes, it was a keepsake from my mother." I was stunned for a moment. "I'm so sorry. I should have looked more carefully before." "It's fine. I wasn't entirely sure I had lost it at your place. Thinking back, I must have put it there when I was making the porridge. My bad." I was at a loss for words again. After a long silence, I heard Felix's whisper-like voice. "Today is the anniversary of my mother's death. My condolences. My parents are healthy, and my family is happy." I couldn't really comprehend the sorrow of such a loss. "It's okay. It's been a long time. She passed away when I was a teenager." But hearing his nonchalant words, I couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy for him. "Mr. Anderson, how about I have another drink with you?" The moment the words left my mouth, I wanted to slap myself. And Felix actually nodded in agreement. He actually agreed. As we clinked our glasses at the table, I still hadn't processed how we ended up drinking together. Felix didn't say much, only that his mother had died of an illness, and then he just kept drinking, one glass after another. Influenced by him, and having already had a fair bit to drink myself, I successfully got drunk. The next day, I woke up, grabbed my phone, and the first thing I saw was the explosion in the family group chat. "Leo, report. Jessie didn't come home last night." Followed by my mom's comment, "Working overtime again? Does her boss have any humanity?" "Leo, I don't think it was overtime. I think my cousin has a boyfriend." And then the group chat blew up. My mom, my aunt, they all sent me several private messages. I ignored them all, turned off my phone, and sat up. Looking over the back of the sofa, I saw Felix already busy in the kitchen. I had no idea when he had gone to bed last night, but he looked full of energy now, not a trace of yesterday's melancholy. He looked like the perfect family man, bustling around the kitchen. "You're awake?" Felix brought a dish to the table. "Sorry, I had a bit too much to drink last night. I should have let you sleep in the guest room, but I saw you were already asleep on the sofa, so I didn't want to wake you. There are new toiletries in the bathroom. I'll just make a soup, and we'll be ready." I rubbed my throbbing temples. "Mr. Anderson, last night I'm not a great drunk. I've always relied on my high tolerance and rarely gotten completely wasted. But last night, I definitely had too much." I vaguely remember grabbing Felix's shoulder and telling him that from now on, I'd have his back. Thankfully, Felix didn't seem to mind. "I drank a lot last night too. Don't worry about it. Get up and let's eat." "Oh." After washing up, I looked at the table. Felix had fried steaks, made a salad, and there were also small buns, porridge, and pickles, a whole feast. "I didn't know what you liked to eat, so I just made a little bit of everything." "Wow, Mr. Anderson, I had no idea you were such a good cook." Forced to learn when I was studying abroad. I didn't really have an appetite, but looking at all this, I'm suddenly starving. Felix smiled. I sat down and cut into a piece of steak. I could tell this wasn't some cheap cut from the supermarket. This guy Felix probably really knew how to cook. Good looking, and he can cook. In my mom's words, a total catch. And he's rich. A diamond bachelor. "Did you make these buns too?" "My housekeeper made them and froze them. I just heated them up." "Oh. That's still impressive. My mom always tells me I don't even know how to take things out of the freezer. I only know how to order takeout." Students in this country are under a lot of pressure, and then they're busy looking for jobs after graduation. It's normal not to know how to cook. He even provides top-tier emotional validation. A perfect score. I nodded, ate half a steak, 2 buns, and a bowl of porridge. I glanced at the time. It was 8:05. Time to go to work. Felix said at the perfect moment, "I'll take you home first, then we'll go to the office together." I did need to go home and change. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Felix swirled the black coffee in his cup and smiled. If I remember correctly, in your words, we're now drinking buddies. Doesn't Mr. Anderson sound a little too formal? Felix, I mean, boss? Felix sighed and rubbed his forehead. When I'm not your boss anymore, I wonder what you'll call me then. After that, even when I worked late, I would always happen to run into Felix's car. Whenever I had to work overtime, the executive office would send over treats. My boss would complain that the big boss never replied to his emails, while I stared at the read receipt on my screen, feeling like I was secretly doing something wrong. Felix contacted me a few times on WhatsApp, never about anything serious, mostly asking for recommendations for local specialty dishes to treat his friends. One time, we ran into each other during a client meeting, and Felix immediately left his own party to back me up. I'm not completely clueless when it comes to romance. I pretty much knew that Felix was pursuing me. But I wasn't sure what kind of pursuing it was. A rich second-generation classmate who had been chasing me for a while gathered a bunch of friends for his birthday, and I couldn't get out of going. It was only when I got there that I realized the atmosphere was unusual. The room was filled with pink balloons, and everyone was winking and nudging each other. It didn't feel like a birthday party, more like a proposal. The rich classmate, Ryan, personally pushed out a cake. Seeing that things were going south, I tried to leave, but two of his friends blocked my way. Then Ryan walked up to me, step by step, and got down on one knee. Jesse, I've liked you since college. I have 3 older brothers, I'm the youngest in my family. My dad said that after I get married, he'll give me a small company to manage. My mom has already transferred 2 villas to my name, and I have some savings of my own. I also invest in stocks, so I won't starve without my family. After this birthday, I'll be 28. I want to get married, I want to have a home with you. From now on, I'll settle down and focus all my energy on my family. So, Jesse, will you marry me? Marry him, marry him. The people around us started chanting. My expression was pained. I whispered to Ryan, couldn't you have talked to me about this beforehand? His response was an even louder proposal. Jesse, will you marry me? Let me take care of you for the rest of your life. The surrounding excitement seemed to have nothing to do with me. If I said yes to Ryan, I could immediately start living the leisurely life of a rich man's wife. But, looking at Ryan's face, I just couldn't bring myself to love him. In a marriage, what's more important, material wealth or love? Sorry, I want both. Sensing my coldness, the crowd stopped their clamor. I didn't take the bouquet or the ring from Ryan. Instead, I took his arm and helped him up. I'm sorry, you'll definitely find someone more suitable. When I got outside, a light drizzle had started to fall. Felix was standing right in front of me, holding an umbrella, appearing out of nowhere. Our eyes met. I was about to say something when Ryan chased after me. Jesse, I have something to say to you, Jesse. Ryan ran up hastily and stood between me and Felix. Jesse, I know I didn't discuss proposing to you today, but I genuinely like you. If you don't want to get married, that's fine too. We can be boyfriend and girlfriend first. If that doesn't work, I can be your backup option. Just don't be mad, okay? My gaze shifted, and I saw Felix looking over with an amused expression. I quickly looked back at Ryan. Ryan, I. Just as I was trying to figure out how to let him down for good. A cool voice sounded from behind us. She's already into someone else. My heart skipped a beat. Felix held the umbrella with his right hand, the ring on his left pinky catching some unknown light as he walked over, step by swaying step. Who are you? Ryan instinctively sensed the hostility. Felix said, it doesn't matter who I am. What matters is that she's into someone else and can't accept your proposal. That day, I was pulled away by Felix in a daze. He didn't let go of my hand until we reached the parking garage. The rain in the sky had gradually stopped. When I saw his big G-Wagon, I gently twisted my wrist. "Mr. Anderson, thank you for helping me out back there. You can let go, I can walk by myself." Felix didn't say a word. Instead, he tightened his grip, swung me against the car door, then lowered the umbrella and ducked under it with me. He braced one hand against the roof of the car, trapping me between his chest and his legs. An unfamiliar scent drew closer and closer. Sensing the warmth pressing against my lips, I had just started to turn my head when Felix tilted my chin back. "Don't hide." Felix's voice was demanding and hoarse. Felix's charming eyes were lowered, his gaze fixed on my lips, and the next second, he pressed his own against them. The first sensation was coolness, then the next moment, Felix opened his mouth, and warmth enveloped me, followed by a fiery heat. MMH. Felix's kiss was dominant. I couldn't fight back at all. My legs went weak, and his arm wrapped around my waist, holding me tight. Now, with the car behind me and him in front, there was no escape. My feet were on tiptoe, and my hands had unconsciously climbed onto his shoulders. A feeling of drowning, of being electrocuted, new sensations I'd never experienced filled my senses. My brain started to short-circuit. It wasn't until I was breathless from the kiss that Felix's lips finally left mine. Our foreheads touched. Felix wasn't in much better shape. He was panting, and I could feel his heart pounding. After a brief separation, Felix lowered his head and pecked the corner of my lips. My face was so hot, I felt like my whole body was on fire. I lowered my head and pushed against his shoulders. Felix bent down, his face close to mine again. The moment I tried to dodge, Felix's voice, husky with desire, came again. "Still hiding." This time, Felix's kiss was long and lingering. Even though the large umbrella concealed us well, I could hear the laughter of people passing through the parking garage. It wasn't until Felix had kissed his fill that he finally let me go, pulling me into his arms. My hands had somehow ended up on his waist, and my legs were genuinely weak. I suspect if he hadn't let me lean on him, I would have collapsed on the spot. When I had caught my breath, Felix looked down at me in his arms. "You got proposed to?" I licked my lips, feeling that they were swollen. Felix's hand came up to brush my lips. "You didn't know I was chasing you, hmm?" I mumbled into his chest, I wasn't sure. "Not sure. You think I'm so bored that I just happen to run into you all the time and go out of my way to drive you home?" "You could have just been trying to sleep with me," I answered. Felix let out a short laugh. "I do want to sleep with you, but it's not that simple. Jessie, be my girlfriend." I looked up at him. "Are you serious?" Felix replied, "Yes. A serious relationship. Will you say yes? And if I don't?" "Good things take time." Felix looked up at the moon. "Besides, I'm your boss. Even if you want to, you can't get away." The next day, as soon as I got to the office, someone delivered a huge bouquet of red roses for me. It drew a ton of envious looks. Everyone was guessing who sent the flowers and saying that I looked so radiant, something good must be happening. At noon, Felix texted me to come up to his office for lunch. He added that if I didn't come up, he would bring the lunchbox down himself. I pictured the scene of being gawked at and had no choice but to go to his office. His assistant saw me sneaking around and just smiled knowingly. The moment the assistant left, Felix pulled me onto his lap and kissed me again and again. He was like a completely different person from the reserved, cool man he had been before. I looked at the bright sun outside and felt incredibly embarrassed. When I pushed him, he got annoyed. "It's the 28th floor. Who's going to see? What if someone comes in?" Felix glanced at the space under his desk. "If someone comes in, you can just duck under here. I've been wanting to try." He whispered a few words into my ear. My heart pounded and my face flushed. I nearly elbowed him so hard he'd have internal bleeding. Men. It doesn't matter who they are, the moment they're in a relationship, they become shameless. After lunch, Felix made me lie down and nap with my head on his lap. After half a month of this, the secret was bound to get out. One night, as Felix was seeing me home, he held me back from going upstairs, and my mom and dad caught us red-handed. My mom said to my dad in a sarcastic tone, "See? And you were thinking about making her a nice meal. Looks like she's eating just fine." My face turned beet red. I formally introduced Felix to my parents. Felix was polite and gentle, completely charming my dad. My mom also looked at her future son-in-law with a beaming, approving smile. That evening, as I was walking my mom downstairs, she told me to be careful and stay safe. I was confused, saying that our neighborhood has always been very safe. My mom gave me a light punch and told me not to go and get myself pregnant. She said she just retired a few years ago and wasn't ready to be a stay-at-home grandma yet. What was she even talking about? Couldn't she trust her own daughter? Am I the kind of person who can't control herself? That night, Felix stayed over. While I was showering, he shamelessly squeezed in. From the bathroom to the bedroom, he wore me out completely. But then Felix slammed on the brakes mid-action, saying we didn't have any condoms. XXX. My desire to curse reached its absolute peak. At the end of the month, Felix went on a business trip. Then, before he got back, I had to go out of town. After not seeing each other for over half a month, Felix picked me up at the airport, holding my hand the entire way and not letting go. The moment we got back to his place, he pushed me onto the sofa. Before I could even react, he was straddling me. Without bothering to unbutton his shirt, he pulled it off over his head, revealing a lean, 8-pack abdomen. Gulp. I heard myself swallow. I had intended to be demure for a moment, but then I lost all ability to resist. Felix was eager too, a wildfire spreading. He carried me towards the bedroom, grabbing a small box on the way. Ow! When he entered me, I gasped and tried to pull back. Then I heard Felix's voice again, "Don't hide." It hurt so much, and I couldn't get away. Who treats someone like this? I was in pain and felt wronged, crying until my stomach cramped. Felix held me, kissing me softly. "Shoo, baby, don't cry," he coaxed. "If you keep crying, you'll be the death of me." I finally managed a tearful smile, and then had to endure a wave of Felix's barely restrained assault. The first time was more pain than pleasure. Felix said this kind of thing just needs more practice, so we practiced 2 or 3 more times. Thankfully, I had the next day off from my trip, otherwise, I don't know how I would have explained limping into the office. After a night of passion, I was almost afraid to be alone with Felix. But he would just give me one of his single eyelid glares, his lips turning down in a pout. Hiding again? Still hiding? Am I some kind of monster? 1,000,000 times scarier than that, I'd say, and run. Felix would yell, "You get back here." The next morning when I got to the office, everyone was looking at me strangely. Annie looked at me, hesitating to speak. Before I could ask what was going on, my boss called me into his office, his expression serious. "Jesse, normally, one's personal life shouldn't affect their work, but you can't engage in malicious competition and disrupt the market." "Boss, what are you talking about?" My boss pushed the company's internal network page towards me. The headline was bold: "Marketing Department's Jesse chauffeured to and from work daily in different luxury cars," followed by photos of me getting out of various high-end vehicles. As if the pictures weren't enough, one of them clearly captured the license plate number of a certain nouveau riche tycoon. Coincidentally, that tycoon had pursued me before, but now he was just a client. The person who wrote the article took liberties, claiming I was being kept by the tycoon, which was how I was getting so many resources. The article also claimed I stole resources from my colleagues, which was getting a bit too personal. Besides Megan, I couldn't think of anyone else who would slander me like this. She was something else. After all that investigating, did she really not manage to get a single clear shot of Felix's face? My boss was about to say more, but I held up a hand to stop him. "Boss, don't worry about this. I'll handle it properly and give you a satisfactory answer." As someone who believes in immediate revenge, I walked out of the office, grabbed Megan by the hair, and dragged her out. "Megan, did you post those photos online?" Megan was defiant. "So what if I did? Unlike you, I'm not afraid to admit what I've done." People from various departments gathered at the door to watch the show. Just as I was about to stop arguing and just beat her up to vent my frustration, Felix came downstairs. Megan whined, "Mr. Anderson, Jessie has a questionable character. She's involved with many powerful men behind the scenes. She might even be selling company secrets." Felix looked at her and laughed. "Selling company secrets? The entire company belongs to my wife. Who would she need to sell it to?" The onlookers, "Whoa. No way, is Jessie the boss's wife?" Ahem. It was pretty embarrassing. But at the same time, it was very sweet. Felix explained that every luxury car in the photos was his. "My wife is low-key and was afraid of being noticed, so I drove different cars from my garage." "You got a problem with that?" Felix had officially outed me. At the same time, Megan was fired, and Annie was promoted to fill her position. At the company, I began living a blissful life, second in command only to one person. When Felix heard this description, he said it wasn't accurate. He whispered in my ear, "Last night, you were on top." I chased him around the room, trying to hit him. This man was getting more and more shameless. Felix had been feeding me his delicious home-cooked meals every day, and lately, I had been trying to lose weight by skipping dinner. Skipping dinner made me extremely irritable. Right at that moment, I got the first call from Megan 2 months after she was fired. Some people think they've landed a rich husband, but a sparrow that flies onto a branch can never become a phoenix. I said, "Speak English." Megan replied, "I met a friend in City B, and she took me to a banquet where I ran into the second daughter of the family, the one who's an actress. She said privately that Felix is her fiancé. You're just his plaything in City A. Rich heirs like him play around, but they always go back home to get married. You don't need to worry about me. Even as a plaything, Felix wouldn't choose you. You should focus on finding a job before you starve to death in City B." I hung up, fuming. I chugged a large bottle of Coke to calm down, completely ruining my diet. Felix came home late, and the first thing he saw was my gloomy face. Felix asked, "What's wrong, baby? Who made you angry again?" I tried to hold it in but failed. "I hear you're some rich heir from City B." Felix frowned. "What nonsense are you talking about?" I continued, "Is your dad going to give me a blank check and tell me to fill in any amount, just to leave his son? How many millions do you think I should ask for?" Felix frowned. "Did my dad call you?" I shot back, "So your dad is really going to offer me money?" "I'm telling you, Felix, if he dares to give it, I dare to take it. You think I'm just playing around with you?" "Get down here," Felix said, grabbing my legs and placing me on the dining table, looking down into my eyes. "What is really going on?" I cried, "Someone said you're two-timing me, that you have a fiancé in City B and you're keeping a trophy girlfriend in City A. When you get transferred back to headquarters, are you planning to have a whole alphabet of women, one in every city? What are you talking about? I only have you." I retorted, "Only a ghost would believe you. A man's words are all lies." Felix said, "We're getting our marriage license tomorrow. If you don't believe me, you have to believe the government." I grumbled under my breath. "Fine, let's get it. Who's afraid of who?" The next day, coming out of City Hall, I couldn't wipe the smile off my face, looking at the 2 identical red marriage certificates. I jumped up and gave Felix a perfunctory kiss, calling him hubby. Felix stood with his hands on his hips, not quite placated. "Not calling me Mr. Anderson anymore?" I replied, "Calling you Mr. Anderson is too formal." Felix leaned in and gave me a fierce kiss. "If you ever spread rumors again, I'll have to punish you." But I was too happy to care. I took a close-up picture of Felix's face, posted it on my social media, along with the marriage certificates. "Mr. Anderson, here's to many years together." When Megan left a snarky comment, photoshopped, I smugly closed the app. Just then, a new notification popped up. It was from the Mr. Anderson right beside me. It was a photo of us cuddling in bed at night, with the same red certificates. Beneath the photo, a line of golden text slowly appeared. A new way to love you, until forever. Jesse and Felix. Simple words, with today's date below, but they instantly brought tears of happiness to my eyes. For those not in love, marriage is a cage. But for two people in love, marriage is just another way to love each other even more. May you live happily ever after.